characteristics of assumptions on the GMAT critical reasoning questions. In the earlier videos, we discussed that in the critical reasoning questions, the argument that is presented always has a premise and a conclusion, and there is generally a gap between the premise and the conclusion. We call this gap the missing link, and identifying the missing link is key to solving the GMAT critical reasoning questions. Now, a correct assumption should be something that fills the missing link and is necessarily true. Let's elaborate. Fill the missing link. The gap between the premise and the conclusion can be filled in various ways. An assumption always fills the missing link, but everything that fills the missing link is not an assumption. Assumption is something that is necessarily true for the argument to hold. Let's touch upon this aspect. An assumption is something which is necessarily true for the argument to hold. Assumption always strengthens an argument, and when made negative, completely voids the argument. Let's learn this through an example. Here is an argument. The missing link is between 15% GDP growth and the conclusion that the party has done a good job. Look at this answer choice. Do you think this is a fine assumption? See, the conclusion has been based purely on the GDP growth. This answer choice suggests that GDP growth is an important factor in deciding the performance of a party. So yes, it fills the missing link, and yes, it is something that must be true for the argument to hold. Imagine, negate it, and see, GDP growth is not an important factor in deciding the performance of a party. If GDP growth is not an important factor, then the complete reasoning goes haywire. So yes, we have a statement that fills the missing link and something that must be true for the argument to hold. This is a fine assumption. Let's look at one more example. Same reasoning. The missing link is between the 15% GDP growth and the conclusion that the party has done a good job. Look at this answer choice. GDP growth is the most important factor in deciding the performance of a party. This answer choice also fills the missing link, but does it have to be necessarily true? What if GDP growth is not the most important factor? It is the second most important factor, or the third most important factor, or just a very important factor, or simply an important factor. Even in all such cases, the argument may hold. So this is not an answer choice that has to be necessarily true for the argument to hold. This answer choice will work very well for a strengthening statement, but this does not work as an assumption. So no, this is not an assumption. It fills the missing link, but doesn't have to be necessarily true for the argument to hold. This was the concept, guys. GMAT shorts are deliberately kept brief. For an elaborate explanation, please refer the stage 1 videos. Thanks for watching.